How are you, Mr.?
I'm good, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, before we continue, Mr., how do you want to have a Q&A session? Would you prefer having a Q&A session during the presentation so that all participants can ask questions in the middle of your presentation? Or would you rather have a Q&A session at the end after your presentation is finished, sir?
Yep. So maybe what will be good is, as I go through the presentation, if anybody has any questions, just type it in the chat first, so you don't forget. And then at the end, I will go through the questions together.
Okay. As Mr. Umar Munshi has said, all participants will be given the opportunity to ask the question after he has finished his presentation. So to anyone who wants to ask some questions, you can leave your questions via the chat room, or you can use the raise hand feature after the presentation is finished. And then our host will allow you to ask the lecturer directly. It can be questions related to what he will deliver today, or questions related to his area of expertise. Okay, without further ado, let's immediately begin our second lecture. Mr. Umar Munshi, the time and screen is yours.
All right, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you everybody for making time to listen to me, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me again. I've been involved in programs with the university for the past few years, and alhamdulillah, I also went to Bogor a few years ago. Hopefully, inshallah, things open up again that we can travel and meet. So today, I'm talking about the Islamic digital economy in Malaysia and Singapore. It's meant to be a case study. I'm not an expert in the Islamic digital economy, but my company, Ethis, which is the combination of the words ethical and Islamic, and in Indonesia, it's similar to the word ethis, without the H. This is a company that does crowdfunding and crowd investment and fintech. So we are definitely Sharia compliant. We are focused on Islamic finance. And so we do work a lot with other Islamic economy players, stakeholders, regulators, and so on. Yeah. So inshallah, in this session, I will start off with some statistics and infographics from different reports so that this concept of Islamic digital economy is better understood. And then I'll move on to 4 specific examples or case studies, 2 in Singapore and 2 in Malaysia. Yeah. And last but not least, I'll give a very brief overview of my company, Ethis, so you understand how we link and how we work within the Islamic digital economy. Right? And as I mentioned just now, please feel free to type out your questions as I go. Whenever any question comes to mind, just type it out. Yeah? Now, this is some definitions. I think there's no real definition per se. And I believe as well, different research bodies and different individuals have different understanding of the Islamic digital economy. Now, this is the first one is from Dinar Standard. I did not put the source. So Dinar Standard and Thomson Reuters, which are some research-focused organizations. This is what they said: the Islamic economy, not digital Islamic economy, but the Islamic economy is anchored in or based on how Muslims view the world, right? Which basically is all our principles, all the Sharia laws, all the Sharia guidance, and the values that we have in our life. So from there, the commercial aspect, the business aspect, the work aspect is based on all of this, right? And from there, when we go deeper, there is the statement used here is universal appeal. Muslims and non-Muslims can be attracted to, and that's very important because as in Islam we know that Islam is for humanity. It's not only for Muslims, it's for everybody, right? And those who are not Muslims are potential Muslims. So what we also know is that there are many rules and a lot of guidance in Islam that revolves around being fair, having justice in what we do, having adab in what we do, and all these things and more, when you apply it to the economy, it's something that is generally appealing in terms of something that is good. And so it's something for everybody. Another way of looking at the Islamic digital economy is digital services or digital products that are based on Sharia. Another way of looking at it is digital services that are tailored towards Muslims. Another way of looking at it is maybe Muslim founders who try to implement Islam in their business, right? So there's many ways of looking at it, and every country, every region is different. Indonesia and Malaysia, by default, most things are halal, most things, not all. Some formal, some informal. In Singapore, not everything is halal when you talk about finance and other things, even food, right? So it's quite different, but this is the general idea. The general idea is that you have businesses, you have services, you have transactions that are based on the Islamic way of seeing things or doing things. Yeah. Now, this is how one of the research, I forgot to put the source. Yeah, it's from Deloitte. Yeah. So this is based on Islamic, the way Deloitte, a research company, looks at the different aspects of the Islamic digital economy. So you can see there's many. There's 8: food, travel, art, finance, education, fashion, and they even put in smart mosque, Masjid Pintar, I guess, and Islamic media. So this is where the spread is very, very wide. Right? Islamic digital economy can be covered under any of this, and even other things potentially as well. Now, some things are moving very fast and moving very strongly. Some components or some verticals of the Islamic digital economy, some are maybe a little bit slow, or maybe the need is not so high, or the demand is not so high. Yeah. For example, one of the biggest and highest industries for the Islamic economy has always been food, right? Because Muslims are generally very concerned about food. But when you come to other things like art, design, even finance, a lot of Muslim countries are not fully aware or may not take it so seriously. Right? When it comes to things like fashion, entertainment, then a lot of gray areas and a lot of different standards of what is accepted and what is not. Yeah. So anyway, this is just to give you an idea. Right? Islamic digital economy is very, very broad. So this is another report from Dina Standard recently and Thomson Reuters, where they try and have an indicator. So they calculate comparatively all the different countries that have significant sectors in the Islamic economy, not specifically digital, in general, Islamic economy in general. So you see Malaysia wins it every year so far. They're number one in overall. So you can see halal food, Malaysia. Yes.
Sir, why in halal food, why Saudi Arabia is not in top 10 even?
Why?
What
Sorry?
is the reason? In halal food, why not Saudi Arabia is in top 10?
Oh, this
Saudi
is
Arabia.
yes, good question.
Yeah.
I guess other than maybe kurma and some food, I don't think you've encountered much food from.
I'm accountant also. I work in food industry also. So I think over 70% import of chicken is from Brazil and France. That is 70%
Yes.
of local consumption. So this is the way. That's why you are not putting there. Look, this is the halal food.
What's the question? Yeah. Okay. So this is the industry size. So Saudi, I don't believe, has a large local food industry. It's like you said, all imported. Yeah. And this is not my ranking, it's from Dina Standard. I'm just sharing with you some research that's done. Because I want to set the context of the Islamic digital economy. Yeah. So it's not about consumption, it's about the economy, it's about the sector size. So in terms of halal food, I don't know also the exact calculation, but sorry, not sector size, by how developed the sector is. Yeah, not the sector size. There are many different indicators they use, many different data points they use. I do not have the details, but this is the latest one that came out recently. Yeah. So as a halal hub or a halal leader, Malaysia is considered very high compared, and then Singapore, and then other countries. And yeah, you can look online for more information. I won't be able to answer beyond that. And I want just to give an idea, right? So if you look at Indonesia, it's number 4, number 6, number 6. Fashion, Indonesia is number 3. Pharmaceuticals is number 6, and so on. But Singapore, strangely, is in a lot of these tables, although it's not a Muslim country, right? So later on, I'll touch on that a little bit. How come Singapore somehow is considered quite significant in the Islamic economy? Yeah, because today my focus will be Malaysia and Singapore, right? But I don't have the data here, but I believe for the past few years, Indonesia has continued to go up the ranking very fast. Yeah, so Indonesia is on the emerging trend. Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. And this is also old data. It's there's no recent data. This is what I could find. This is from Deloitte 2015, 2014. So this is the size of how much money Muslims spend on their lifestyle. Again, I do not know the methodology, but just to give you an idea that it's spread out everywhere. Supposedly MENA is the biggest, followed by East Asia, which is this region, and South Asia, which is India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Yeah. And here, so I'm setting the context, yeah? Because later on my points will relate back to some of this data that I'm sharing with you. And so I want to give an understanding of the Islamic economy based on data before talking about the practical application or talking about my observations and the case studies that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, but sorry, let me go back to this one. Yeah. Now I want to touch on this briefly before I move on, before I forget. Now, when it comes to the Islamic digital economy, right? And let me jump back also. You can see here there's 8 different sectors or verticals according to how Deloitte does it. Here there's 6 according to DINA standard from food and so on, and then more or less overlap, a little bit of differences here and there. Now, what is happening right now in terms of the digital economy, and we'll go through maybe these 6 because I like this categorization. So when it comes to halal food, or whether it's production and especially consumption, a lot of it is going much more into the tech space and so-called more digital. Even food today has a lot of, they call it food tech or food production technology, from the farm all the way to the central kitchens or virtual kitchens, they call it. And then of course delivery, online orders and so on. So I think this is very much also has already started to become very digital, especially with the COVID. So halal food, although here the categorization is for Islamic economy, is very, very relevant for the digital economy or technology-based economy. Yeah, of course, production is never going to be digital, but it is run by technology, and a lot of technology is in the cloud. Yeah. Islamic finance, I'm sure we all know about fintech. Yeah, that's the space that I come from, and it's growing very, very fast for Islamic fintech, but it is still very small. Halal food is probably the biggest by far. I think later there'll be some data. Travel is unfortunately not something very, doing very well right now, but at the same time, it's not really so digital. It's physical experience. But for the rest, media especially, fashion as well, because fashion today is very much driven by trends, which is very much driven by the internet. Is very much digital in nature. Media and recreation, especially lifestyle, that's very, very digital today. Yeah. So although I'm showing you data or categorization for Islamic economy, but in terms of digital or Islamic digital economy, there are also it's also similar, just a little bit different in terms of how it reaches the consumer, and in terms of how it is also provided, right? The form of the service. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that's clear as some context. And here, yeah, I won't go through this so much. Okay, this one is just to show you. Now, this is very, very interesting. unfortunately, you see most of the green numbers near the bottom. So the green numbers are basically the what you call it, the Muslim countries, right? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And I believe is ranked based on, I can't see my screen properly, based on top 10, yeah. Top 10 Muslim markets by population, okay? So number 1 is Indonesia, and supposedly number 2 is India, yeah. Anyway, number 3 is Pakistan. So you can see this curve shows you how ready the market or the country is for technology, right? And the top few countries you can see up here, Singapore is number 1, according to this research, and then there's a few others, all developed countries. When you look at the Muslim countries, you see some of the Arab countries, the Middle Eastern countries quite high, Malaysia also quite high, Saudi quite high, and so on. And then the top 10 will follow below, right? Now, although the readiness, so-called, is not that high, according to this, right? But from the data is not here, but from my understanding, from trends, it is growing very fast and is growing probably among the fastest in the world. Yeah. So here is where there's a lot of potential growth. And there's really a lot of potential growth in the Muslim world, in the Islamic economy. And the other component or the other factor, again, is that there is a very young Muslim population globally. So these two demographics, where it is an emerging economy, emerging infrastructure, emerging digitalization, and young population, this makes for a very powerful combination that will bring some, inshallah, some tailwinds to grow the Islamic digital economy faster, inshallah. Right? Okay, and this is just extracted also from the same reports that I mentioned earlier to highlight where these reports see the opportunities to be. And on the left is a new report. I think it's the DINA standard one. And on the right is an older report. So on the left is very interesting. You can see the yellow ones. Strong signal, meaning there's a high opportunity or large opportunity. Banks going digital, the Islamic digital banks. Domestic tourism, of course, that depends a lot on COVID situation. And supply chain, which relates to, of course, halal food, halal products, halal cosmetics, and so on, the physical halal products. So this is where there's, according to the research, a strong signal for growth. Yeah. Then there's also other things like, you can see here, halal cloud kitchens that I mentioned just now, online games that are Islamic or halal in its approach, tokenization of sukuk. Here is where you have fintech making sukuk more accessible to the masses, and so on. Right? I won't go so much into all of this. These are all research, which is important, right? But I think later on what I'll show is of course the case studies itself. On the right, here are some other points from an older report, and some of these are very interesting. At the bottom, all these are high opportunity. They have different levels of opportunity. But here you have halal sharing, which is interesting. Of course, the COVID has made it difficult. This is before COVID. And there were attempts, I know 3 or 4 attempts that did not work out for various reasons. Main reason is most startups don't work out. So it takes many attempts before something works out and grows big. And another one that I want to highlight is halal and tayyib convenience. That means services. This is interesting, right? You can order halal food, you can order halal ingredients, you can order all sorts of different halal tailored things for consumption, or even for restaurants. But so far, I think it's more of an add-on to existing services, right? Like, of course, in Indonesia, you have Gojek and Grab and others. They just have the halal tab, or sometimes you don't even have that. So these are some, opportunities that are identified by the reports. Yeah, right. So moving on now that you've understood the global context a little bit, as I mentioned, I'm also not an expert, so I'm depending on all this expert research to give you some insights before I go to the actual case studies. Now, these are some very brief advantages for Singapore and Malaysia. I'm from Singapore. I'm living in Malaysia, and most of my business is in Indonesia. So inshallah, I have some perspective on these three countries, and I can give some comparison. Now, Singapore, as most of us probably know, is very advanced in technology. Just now you saw is number one in the world in terms of technology readiness. Is very advanced in startups. All the big startups in the region will have some kind of setup or even the headquarters in Singapore. They will raise funds in Singapore and so on. So Singapore, although it is a very, very tiny country, very small population compared to, of course, Indonesia, even Malaysia, but in terms of development, advancement, it's very, very developed. So this is a key advantage, because when you have success in, especially in this case, startups and technology and digital business, then that attracts number two, number three. Right? So number two is talent and expertise. You can get the top expertise in Singapore for all the latest emerging technologies and so on. And also we can get money, right? Singapore is where a lot of the VC funds are based. And even for Indonesia, when there are good companies, good digital companies or startups that want to raise funds, the money still tends to come from Singapore, maybe through an Indonesian office sometimes, right? So these are the advantages of Singapore. And Singapore is also very global. When I started my business, this business Etis in Singapore, the first thing I had in mind, or we had in mind, was we want to grow global. Right? Anybody who has ambition in Singapore will think about regional or global, because Singapore is so small. Singapore is so competitive. There's nothing much we can do there after a few years of trying to grow your business, especially if it's online. So these are very powerful advantages that Singapore has. And these are the same advantages that has led to Singapore having high ranking in the earlier reports. But why in the halal economy? Why in the Islamic economy? To a large extent, I would say two things. One is we are in a Muslim region. And so being in a Muslim region, the influence of Islam is strong. The Muslims in Singapore have relationships and family in the region. And secondly, also, Singapore has very strong frameworks which allow for the Muslims and the institutions in Singapore to be able to develop things. For example, the halal industry, right? MUIS is very well known, very well respected for what it has done in the halal industry, for food, what it has done for wakaf, and so on. And that's because of the legal framework, because of the government framework in Singapore. Right? So Singapore has those advantages, and it has shown it has proven to allow Singapore to have a significant role in the Islamic economy in general. Right? Now, for Malaysia is very different. Right? When I moved from Singapore to Malaysia, a lot of people, a lot of my friends, a lot of business people ask me why. They say, you're doing a technology company, Singapore has these 4 benefits, why Malaysia? Right? Well, why Malaysia is because Malaysia, as I mentioned here, the 3 points. Firstly, is connected to the entire Muslim world. You can now you walk around, there's not many people, but before COVID and when things are open up, you can meet Muslims from anywhere, everywhere, and they not only come and visit for holiday, but they come and live here, they migrate here, they set up here from the developed world, from the UK and so on, from the Arab world, from Muslim countries that are facing challenges and conflict, they're all here, right? So because of that, we have this connectivity and we have a lot of talent in Malaysia. A lot of Muslims from my interaction and my understanding like to live in Malaysia. Right? They like the country. Compared to Indonesia, the challenge is, okay, when I talk to people about Indonesia, I always tell them Indonesia has many worlds. Jakarta is different from Bogor, it's different from Lombok, it's different from Aceh. It's very different wherever you go in Indonesia. But there are challenges for foreigners throughout Indonesia, one of which is communication, culture, and so on. It's a little bit easier, or probably much easier, especially for English language in Malaysia. Yeah. Now, this is the first point. Another thing that's very interesting is that Malaysia is connected with the whole Muslim world. A lot of it, especially in Islamic finance, where the industry I'm in, through the universities. I go to Qatar, I go to Dubai, I go to Africa, and I meet Islamic finance people, and somebody will come to me, are you from Malaysia? I'm from IIUM. I'm from UM. I'm from INSEAD. So this alumni, global alumni of Muslim Islamic finance talent has spread globally back to where they are from or where they want to live. Yeah, so the connectivity, that's part of it. There's a lot of others. Number two, Malaysia also is an Islamic finance and a halal hub. Yeah, and number three is very interesting. When you go to a market like Singapore, you don't have much you can do locally because it's small. When you go to Indonesia, it's very big and it can be difficult to navigate or to understand because it's so big. There's so many things you can do. Which one do you start with, right? What's the best strategy? Now in Malaysia, it is a mid-sized or even considered a bit small as a market. There's 30 million people here. 30 million people is same number of people as Jakarta, right? So Malaysia is small. and to start a business in Malaysia and to grow the business in a market of this size is easier. And it's large enough for you to make your business a certain size before you expand to other countries. Now, I'm spending some time on these slides because this will again relate to my next few slides where I give you some examples. And inshallah, we'll have another 20 minutes before we end for the Q&A. Yeah, so I have 10 minutes, I think. Okay, so I'll speed up. Now, one point at the end of the day, after explaining all of this, is that for both Singapore and Malaysia, for Islamic economy or Islamic digital economy services and technology products, the mindset needs to be global. For Indonesia, it need not be global, right? I don't understand, for example, why Gojek wants to go to Malaysia and Singapore, because Indonesia is big enough, right? But of course, they have their reasons. But point is, Indonesia alone is sufficient as a very large market. And that's why you don't see so many Indonesian brands going overseas. Yeah. However, for Singapore and Malaysia, this is where both countries are good hubs or good headquarters because of all these different points I mentioned here. And why I want to bring up this point is because I see, before going to the case studies, one of the main things that I want to highlight, and I hope that all of you here consider, is there's really a lot of innovation in Indonesia right now in the Islamic economy. I would say it's, although the ranking doesn't make it first, but in terms of innovation, in terms of development, I would believe that Indonesia is first. And a lot of what's happening in Indonesia can and should be exported to the rest of the world. But there's so much to do in Indonesia that may not be the priority. So this is where Singapore and Malaysia can play a role to bring Indonesian innovation and or to add to Indonesian innovation with Singapore and Malaysia talent, expertise, and whatnot, and then bring it to the rest of the Muslim world. Right? To me, that is the big opportunity here. And this is where, inshallah, we can bring a lot of benefit to the Ummah. And I'm sure Indonesia can do it without Singapore or Malaysia, but inshallah, it'll be easier and better to do it together. Yeah. All right. So that's my quick summary of the countries, specific to the countries. And let me show you some case studies. I have 4 case studies. Most of them are quite new, and I'll share a little bit more as I go. So this is based in Singapore, IBF DigiLabs. Although if you go to the website digilabs.sg, you will see a lot of Indonesians because the team, the tech team is in Indonesia, right? It's a Singapore company with people from around the world, but most of the tech team are in Indonesia. And the focus is to bring decentralized finance, DeFi, or blockchain, and AI to the halal ecosystem, right? And there are many such, not too many, but there are a number of such initiatives worldwide. Why I'm highlighting this is because I like their approach, and because of that, my company, Atis, you can see there, has also partnered with them, and we are working closely with them. So you can see here, and you can see on the website. Now, this is very interesting because what IBF is trying to do, IBF's strength is research and academia. Now they brought after a lot more research on new technology, they pulled technology into that wisdom or understanding of Islamic finance and Islamic economy. So here is where the niyyah, the intention is to develop ecosystems for others to use Of course, they want to make money, but the focus is how do we bring the wisdom of Islam into the world through technology. Yeah, so it's very much an R&D focused company, right? This is the second one in Singapore. Very simple, straightforward service to do your wasiah or your Islamic will online, right? And don't underestimate this, because it's something that does not really exist much anywhere, and is, even if it does, quite expensive. So a lot of Muslims do not have wills, but in Islam it is very, very strongly encouraged. And the interesting thing is, this platform is by Pergas Investment Holdings, which is Pergas is Persatuan Guru-Guru and Ulama Singapore, Guru-Guru Agama and Ulama Singapore. So basically, it's the religious teachers or religious scholars organization, and they have an investment arm that developed and launched this as a service. So it's all online, it's all automated, and I believe all Muslim countries should have this. All Muslims should have access to this, and it's not expensive also. Yeah. So these are two innovations that I see in Singapore that are meant to be global as well. Okay, this is meant to be global from the very beginning. And this is currently very Singaporean because it just started 2-3 months ago. IBF is about late last year. Yeah, so they are quite new. But for this, eventually, it's not difficult to change it or to repurpose it to be global. Yeah. All right. So let me move on. Now, this is very interesting, especially all of you young people. I assume you probably know who's Nilofa. She's an influencer, media celebrity, and so on. So this is the Noor app, and you can see. Okay, yeah, I wanted to screenshot the main app, but I forgot to put it in. So anyway, it has the basic stuff like prayer time, azan, Quran, Qibla, and all that. But you can see here, I put the wrong image. But it actually it is now a super app where you have financial services, you can give zakat, sedekah, wakaf, you have media, you can watch Muslim kids programs, you have commerce. So this is this was launched, I think, late last year, and recently they upgraded the second version of the software. And Nilofa is the CEO, so he has gone quite viral in Malaysia and other countries, right? So this is something, again, that can be very borderless, can be very global, and something that I'm sure in Indonesia there are other versions as well. But it could very well be a collaboration or expansion for the Noor to go into Indonesia and other countries. So these are the two these are the two Singaporean ones. This is the Malaysian one, and the last Malaysian one that I want to highlight is our own platform, Global Sedekah. Yeah, I'm aware that the theme of this event is social finance, and so I focus more on social finance. And one thing interesting you can see here, that the one in the middle, Kita Jaga, it's a very interesting app. It's in Malaysia. It's an app called Kita Jaga, where you can if you need help because of COVID, you don't have money, you don't have food, you can put a flag, a red flag or a white flag in a red circle. So you can put the flag out. I need some milk, some susu for my child. Please help me. My husband doesn't have a job, or I don't have a job. And then people can also put blue flags to say, I want to help. Yeah, and then that's more than 1 million people have visited the platform, and 100,000 white flags have been raised. And recently, they start connecting people online through transactions as well. You can buy things for people, and it's sent to their house. So for Global Sedekah, it is a charity crowdfunding platform. But what's interesting about Global Sedekah is that we work with innovative companies like Kita Jaga. We partner with the Noor. We partner with IBF. Everything you see so far, all our partners, right? But what I wanted to show is any platform can be collaborative and can leverage on others. And I think that's what we really need in the Islamic economy space today, to collaborate, not to recreate and compete. I can share with you, for Atheist and Global Sedekah, in our few years of existence, we worked with some very big Islamic banks and so on. I will not give names. And so far, after doing pilot with them, for the first two significant clients we had, we do a pilot with them, pilot successful or not so successful. Then we wait and we wait and we wait. And 1 year later, they try and do their own. Right? Now, that is very unfortunate because that does not develop things. You just keep trying to compete. So I feel this is something I want to share, something personal that I feel is very important for the Islamic economy to grow, for the Islamic digital economy to grow. We have to work collaboratively. It doesn't matter which country or what. If it's a good product, if it's a good service, if it provides value to Muslims, then we should all collaborate and work together. Yeah. Okay, so those are the 4 examples, and I'll just spend a few minutes to mention about ETHIS. And for ETHIS, what we do is, let me jump here. In Indonesia, we have P2P, yeah, which is online lending or financing. We only do productive financing to SMEs and for property, based mainly on musyarakah. In Malaysia, we are also licensed in a different way for equity crowdfunding. That means companies can raise funds from our platform and give shares to the public, like going to Bursa. Yeah. So that's the second license that we have. And we have, of course, Global Sedekah, which I showed you earlier. And that's our social arm, inshallah. Right, you can go to ethis.co and you can understand better who we are and what we do. And this is our vision and our aspiration to provide fintech services to create good and to circulate good using or based on Islamic principles, inshallah. All right, I think I've come to the end. These are just some pictures of me and my partner Ronald in different parts of the world. Yeah, mostly in Indonesia and Malaysia. And that's it. Alhamdulillah, I think exactly on time. Yeah. So please connect with me on LinkedIn and social media and my company, and we can, after this event, continue the conversation, inshallah. All right. So I will stop here. Maybe I will go back to this slide here, and we can start with the Q&A. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Umar Munshi. What you have delivered about the topic case study Islamic digital economy in Malaysia and Singapore is very interesting. We are very fortunate to have listened to your presentation today. May Allah bless you. And now we're going to have a Q&A session, sir. As you can see here, we're gonna see, is there any questions? Okay, for all the participants who wants to ask the question, you can fill in the chat room or use the raise hand feature. And now we have one questioners is Mr. Eko Saputra. For Mr. Eko Saputra, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for time, MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nice to meet you, Mr. Umar Munshi. Very happy to get valuable information from you. And inshallah, I will do research for my thesis in Singapore, researching productive wakaf in the country. That is, if possible, I would like to ask for Mr. Umar Munshi for number, so I might be able to stay in touch with the ETHIS crowd office in Singapore, inshallah. And I will definitely need a lot of data about things related to my research, and hopefully I can get the reference from Mr. Umar Munshi. Thank you very much. And my question is that I think that the best wakaf governance, especially in the region, is still in the hands of Singapore, because they have succeeded in producing their wakaf potential, even though the Muslim population in the country is only around 15%. Does this I have anything to do with digital technology in the country? What is the role of ETHIS Code to support the wakaf program in Singapore? Second question is the role of waris investment the same by ethics court? This is my question. Thank you for the answer, Mr. Munshi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Right, thank you, Pak. I think in Singapore it's quite unique. We have 13%, 14%, I think, Muslim, maybe 15% now. And the wakaf that today is a good example for everybody. Those who are interested can go to waris.sg, warees.sg. Waris is a regulator under MUIS, Majlis Ugama Islam Singapore. So they are officially, by law, I believe, the mutawali or the main safekeeper and administrator of all the wakaf. Yeah, unless it's given to a certain family or somebody applies to be a trustee, but still MUIS will be there. So most of the wakaf was developed, I think, 12 years ago. So at that time, nothing so digital yet. And today, and after that, there's no more wakaf to develop. Not much more wakaf to do. Singapore is very small. So after all the wakaf is developed, there's nothing much else to develop. So in Singapore, we do not do any physical wakaf. And in fact, our company, Etis and Global Sedekah, are not, we have office in Singapore, but we are based in Malaysia. In terms of wakaf, there's nothing much in Singapore in terms of physical wakaf. But what we have in Singapore recently is more innovative wakaf, where the cash wakaf, for example, right? So the wakaf is invested in certain things. There's also wakaf ilmu, for example, right? Where you donate to create some knowledge or to share some knowledge with others. So these are the things that's happening in Singapore. For us, for our wakaf right now, for Etis and Global Sedekah, is mostly still wakaf to help poor people, but we build more infrastructure like wells and so on. Yeah. Now moving forward, we want to have wakaf. There is more cash wakaf, so there is more flexible for use, inshallah. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you very much for the answer, Mr. Munshi. And now we are moving to the second questions. It is from Mr. Rinas Muhammad. Assalamualaikum. What is the role of cryptocurrency in the shade of Islam? That's the question.
All right. Thank you. Waalaikumsalam. It's a very can be a very long, complicated topic, but I guess one way I can approach it is just to make sure everybody is on the same page, some basic context. So you have crypto, which today most the common use is common understanding is all these different tokens like Bitcoin and others that is in the crypto market. So people can buy and sell and make profit or lose money through all these cryptos that's floating around in globally. For that, if you're talking about that, then again, I'm not a Sharia scholar, so I cannot make a fatwa. But some Sharia scholars say it is halal. There's nothing haram about it. Some Sharia scholars say it's not encouraged, and some Sharia scholars say it's haram. And when I listen to all these Sharia scholars, my understanding, and again, I'm not an expert, is that maybe the technology is not haram, the token is not haram, but if you are betting on it, if you are speculating on it, if you're buying it, and because you guess and you believe that you want to make money, then that activity is like gambling. And just like how horses are not haram. Islam, there's a special place for horses as well. But people ask the horses to race and then they do betting, which is haram, right? So it's all about how you use these things or how you interact with these things. That's my view. Yeah. So cryptocurrency is haram, maybe if you are using it to gamble, right? Or the activity or your investment is basically like gambling. And my personal opinion is most of the cryptos are very similar. If you buy and sell it, it's very similar to gambling. But I have a lot of good Muslim friends who believe it's not. Yeah, so Wallahu A'lam. And for somebody else, I think related to that, if you don't mind, Shifa, the Global Sedekah also use cryptocurrency, right? Now this is very interesting. For Global Sedekah in Ramadan this year, we launched our crypto payment. So crypto payment meaning if you own cryptos, Bitcoins, whatever, you can pay using your Bitcoin or whatever crypto for sedekah, zakat, wakaf. So this is very interesting and very important. And we're not going to judge whether they are gambling or not, because the crypto itself, I don't, from most of the scholars I listen to, is not, the crypto is not haram. It's what you do with it that's haram. Right? If you gamble, it's haram. So, but nonetheless, Muslims have cryptos, right? A lot of Muslims around the world buy cryptos, and they want to pay zakat. They want to give sedekah. And that's where we decided to facilitate donations directly in crypto through our platform. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the information, Mr. And now we're moving to the third question for this session. This is from Mr. Bazli Fakhri. Thank you for your insightful presentation, Mr. Umar. The questions are, how is Ethis either compete or collaborate with banking industries? As to my understanding, P2P financing is a competitive product when comparing with the banks, and how Ethis able to gain public trust when raising funds from the public to finance the startups. That's the question, Mr.
Great, thank you. I think for P2P, it's not so much on startups, it's more on small companies, yeah, most of them. Although there are a lot of P2Ps doing consumer lending also to individuals, right? Because in Indonesia, P2P, you can give financing to individual, to people, or to company. For us at Ethis, we only focus on productive lending. So we only do business financing, and we right now we do it based on musyarakah for supply chain finance. Yes, we are, I guess, in the same space as banks, but especially for Indonesia and in many countries, banks are not able or not willing to provide financing to small business or to some projects. Right? If the bank does not have the appetite or the interest, then it doesn't lend. Yeah, so that's where P2P typically will grow very fast. But as P2P continues to grow and mature, then we, will start to be more competitive with the banks, because as more markets open up, then we will directly compete with the banks at a later stage, inshallah. So that's the first point. Yeah, so it is potentially competitive, but at this point, I think it's mostly collaborative, because the banks are giving financing to a different market, a different segment of the market. Yeah, and when P2P can support small businesses, these small businesses can grow, and then they can become the bank clients, right? Or when businesses go to the bank and the bank is not able to support the financing, the bank can pass that client to us for the P2P, right? So that's why it's complementary. How do we get public trust? Yeah, so for us, most of the money that has been invested in our projects, mostly in Indonesia, come from overseas. Right now, 5% comes from Indonesia, 95% comes from overseas. I think that is one of the most unique things that we have accomplished so far, right? We are not very big, we don't bring so much money yet, but alhamdulillah, there's investors investing in Indonesia through our platform. So I guess the key is, firstly, the Sharia part, because our investors are Islamic investors. They need to know and understand that we are serious about Sharia. Secondly, the transparency, right? And thirdly is the relationship and the track record, because we are not a big company, we don't spend a lot of money on advertising, and our community grows based on word of mouth and recommendation. Yeah, so that's how we gain the community. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for the explanation, Mr. And those are the first three questions. And I believe what has been explained by Mr. Umar Munshi has answered all those questions very clearly. And now we moved on to the second session of the Q&A. And for this second session, I will allow the one who has raised their hands in the Zoom. And okay, for Mr. Ashraf Sulaimi, you can ask the questions directly right now. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, it's Ashraf here from Malaysia. So thank you, Sir Umar Munshi, on your presentation. It's a very interesting presentation. So my simple question is that, in your experience in helping entities transforming their management or making their management become digital, how significant that transformation on that entity on the cost efficiency in terms of, yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we have worked with some big organizations and governments and religious bodies. I think the main digitalization of operations is very important because you prevent human error, you save a lot of time. However, there is a view or there's a thinking sometimes that it will reduce employment, which is true because you don't need so many people anymore. But at the same time, you are opening up opportunities for people to develop and do higher quality, higher value things as part of their work scope, and let the technology handle the simple stuff. Later on, when technology becomes more advanced and is smarter than people, then I don't know, Allahu Alam. But for now, digitalization, I think, is still, by all accounts, is generally very positive, and it saves a lot of money and saves a lot of time, which is money. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. And we're gonna have another questions. But first, there is actually the questions in the chat room. This is by Mrs. Amanda. Dear Mr. Umar, I saw that Global Sodako also used the cryptocurrency. Is it the role of crypto also play important impacts to increase the fundraising? Is it also many donors use crypto in Malaysia and Singapore?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I already responded to this just now briefly. And we don't know where they are from because when they pay in crypto, sometimes you don't get the data. It's just them donating. And they can create their account, so we know where they're from. But I think globally, there's so much money going to crypto, although I personally don't believe in it as an investment for now. But yeah, I think the whole Muslim world, all countries will have people investing in crypto. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. And for the third question, it is from Mr. Rishad Iskandar. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Umar. Should we implement insurance scheme to protect temporary productive wakaf that used for productive thing so we can return the principal fund to wakif on time as promised?
So productive, temporary wakaf. Okay. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure whether everybody's familiar with the concept of temporary wakaf. I think, yeah, as long as it's Sharia compliant, I don't see any issue. It's an investment, right? So if the investment has a good takaful scheme or a good insurance scheme that gives some level of fair protection, then I think it's fine. I mean, yeah, it depends a lot on the actual structure and the actual contract and so on. Yeah, but if there's a way to protect investors, whether it's for temporary or permanent wakaf, then it will attract more funds, right? Yeah, as long as it's Sharia compliant. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. And